Tutti, grazie ai presenti e soprattutto grazie ai relatori che ci hanno dedicato questo spazio. Ci tengo a sottolineare che parliamo anche di nostri galleristi, quindi persone che in questo momento sono qui anche, come dire, soprattutto per incontrare i visitatori. Quindi grazie doppiamente per la vostra disponibilità. Cedo la parola a Rischa Paterlini che farà da moderatrice e da traduttrice e a più tardi, grazie.
Grazie. Buongiorno a tutti. Questo talk che ho fortemente voluto include gallerie e artisti che fanno parte del mio progetto che è Oltre i confini del Mediterraneo. Quello che mi interessava all'interno del progetto era quello di raccontare una storia di quello che stiamo vivendo senza identificare la nazionalità di ciascun artista o il sesso di ciascun artista. Non è importante, l'importante sono le opere, parlano loro. Ho avuto la fortuna di incontrare lo scorso anno sul mio percorso, quando mi ero occupata di Iran, due persone straordinarie che sono qua con noi, che hanno anche una galleria, che sono Roya Khadjavi, che è una donna iraniana straordinaria che vive a New York e che sostiene, e poi ce lo racconterà in modo incredibile, i suoi artisti, un nuovo modo di fare galleria, come un nuovo modo è anche quello di Pierre, André Podbieslki, che ha una galleria a Milano. E poi abbiamo Bénédicte, che è un'artista che è inclusa nel mio progetto, che per me è molto importante perché attraverso i suoi lavori e le sue performance lei riesce a raccontare, secondo me, il nostro futuro. Quindi se fino ad oggi l'opera di Matan Ashkenazi è fondamentale perché questo granello di sabbia è l'unica cosa che riesce a attraversare un confine in questo momento, perché noi uomini non siamo più in grado di andare oltre un confine, in realtà il suo lavoro ci permette di sognare che le ragazze del futuro, le 14 anni adolescenti, siano il nostro futuro, e non importa che siano palestinesi, iraniane, israeliane, ma loro possono guardare al futuro. Per cui lascio la parola, il talk è in inglese, a differenza di quanto ha detto Ilaria non viene tradotto perché altrimenti andremmo lunghi, ma sono sicura che sarà molto molto interessante. Lascio la parola a Pierre che introduce le signore.
Eccomi, sì, eccomi. Rischa? Sei tu. Allora, premetto in italiano, poi passo in inglese. Rischa, veramente tanto canto di cappello, tanta stima, tanto merito, perché in effetti l'anno scorso il focus sull'Iran è stato veramente un salto enorme in avanti nell'immaginario e nella qualità e nella qualifica di Mia. E questa cosa si consolida oggi con Oltre il Mediterraneo, di cui facciamo parte, no, è talmente coerente con quello che è stato il nostro percorso, te ne devo dare atto e ti ringrazio. So I was just thanking Risha for letting us be part of this focus on Mediterranean. It was going to be Israel, and then it was going to be Middle East. Now it's Mediterranean, but it allows actually all of us to show so many different realities of Mediterranean and beyond. No, but sincere, and we share this.
Yes, absolutely.
There's so much more we can say about what's going on in the world today, and I think photography is, of course, one, if not the most important medium, journalism, of course, but also photography, the emotional impact that photography allows to reach the widest audience. I mean, Kessel was reaching a wide audience with a completely different vocabulary. Ours is just to be very honest and to show and to tell through our artists what's going on in the world today. So I'll just have a few words. Am I speaking too fast? No? My gallery, Podbieslki Contemporary, was born in Berlin, and I left Milan, although I live in Milan, and I need to talk about what's going on in the world today. Milan at the time, 13 years ago, Berlusconi was a very tight environment and a very frustrating environment. So I had the courage and the intuition that Berlin would allow me to be more expressive and to choose more international, interesting, global artists. And the theme of my gallery when I started was Moving Worlds. It was curated by somebody called Griselda Pollock, very important, famous university teacher at Leeds, but anybody who studies photography knows that she's behind what's going on in the world. We're talking about 50 15, 20, 30 years ago, but she's still focused. And Moving Worlds was including artists from Serbia, from Israel, from Iran, and many more. But it gave me a direction. And I think today, after 13 years, that's what distinguishes a bit my program. Not only about politics and geopolitics, but let's say that I try to be very coherent. And I think in the booth we have today here, it says a lot about the Middle East, and not only, but as Rischa said, it's not only about countries and identity, it's just giving more of an international human approach as to what's going on. Share with Roya. Roya is focused on Iranian artists. I had a show last year with only Iranian artists. I was very proud to be able to do that. It was a tribute to Iranian women and what they stand for and what they still heroically are trying to achieve. We have today the Palestinian issue and the Israel issue. Unfortunately, it's an ongoing theme. There's reportage, and then there's what we do, artistic photography involving artists that talk about the reality of today. I'm just going to enlarge a bit who we are and what we do in an international focus. Closer.
Bring it closer.
So should I come closer? I'm sorry. Thanks for saying. No, I just want to say that, we're here in a very commercial entity. It's a fair. We're here to sell. And of course, we're very anxious. There's so many of us, so many different languages. But I think it's important that people should know and be aware that we're kind of philanthropists. We sustain and we support our artists. We occasionally, not always, but we do participate in production. We put our face and their faces in international institutions. It involves a lot of homework, a lot of discipline, a lot of anxiety, a lot of teamwork with our artists. And when you see the result, it's cool and wow, lots of people come and drink champagne. But behind the scenes, and she's the artist, so she will tell us from her perspective, I think we need to be acknowledged with a lot of respect for what we're doing. Of course, there's the fair, there's the organization, there are the institutions, sometimes there are sponsors, but we are very much in our own little league, bringing visibility to the of world artists here in Milan, but then it's going to be Amsterdam, it's going to be London, it's going to be Paris. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of conviction, a lot of motivation to do what we do. I'm looking at you, comes from Slovenia. Slovenia is not in the center of Europe, but it's a very meaningful artistic community. Silvio Wolf here is a friend, an artist. He teaches in New York. So basically what I'm trying to say is that some start locally, but at the end of the day, we all have to have an international visibility. And Mia Fair this year, but already last year, but mostly this year, is aiming to achieve this international visibility and recognition. So I think we're going to take turns. This was a preamble.
I have lived in the United States for almost 46 years now, since the revolution in Iran. I left as a young girl, and for 30 years I didn't return to Iran because of the political situation of my family and what had been done to my family and our properties in Iran. We never went back. So one very memorable August day, I went back after 30 years to Iran, and I rediscovered my country as an adult. And that's how I started really digging into the art scene and the galleries and visiting studios of artists because of my personal interest, because I was a patron of the arts in New York and a collector myself. And when I saw that in, what a thriving art scene there is in Iran and so much talent these young Iranian artists have, and how they communicate their dilemmas, their disturbed situations through very many languages of metaphors and symbolism in order not to be caught, not to be treated poorly, not to be jailed. I decided that, you know, there was so much talent there that I, as a person, am going to go back and create a company and basically spend my time promoting and supporting these young artists who have not had a chance to be really heard, and they are very underrepresented in the West, especially in the United States, because of the 40 years of sanctions that had been imposed on Iran because of this regime. So I became their voice, and I became their representative outside. And because I worked with young artists, I would like meet them, you know, some of them right out of graduate school. So they were all in their like mid to late 20s. And for the past 10 years, I've been working with them. Working with young artists is extremely rewarding because you're there from the beginning. And, you know, when they're totally unknown, especially in the West, you basically pick them up and showcase their work and write about them and connect them with press and, you know, do exhibitions and invite journalists to get to know them. This is all very rewarding and exciting, even though many of the artists who lived in Iran could not travel to their exhibitions that I prepared for them in the United States because of visa issues and all that stuff. But we were even able to do maybe like, you know, some kind of Zoom meetings during the exhibition so that they could take part of it. And then I realized that it was not just the Iranian artists in Iran that needed a lot of support, but also a lot of artists that had left Iran, who lived in Europe, lived in America and elsewhere, Turkey. They needed even more support because they were away from the world that they knew. They were lonely, they had left their families, and they just needed more support in a different way, not just a support to showcase their work and promote them, but also for me to take care of them a little bit, you know. So I became sort of like the mentors, and I created a community for these artists in New York so that they all know each other and they communicate with each other. They have become friends. They help one another, whereas before they kind of knew of each other, but they didn't want to approach one another because one was already represented by a gallery, another one wasn't, one was selling, the other one wasn't. So there was a lot of like maybe competition, which through Roya Khadjavi projects, we have been able to sort of eliminate that and create a feeling of esprit de corps and collaboration and cooperation. So for the past 10 years, that's what I've been doing. You know, Roya Khadjavi is a project-based gallery. It's not a permanent space in New York. I do exhibitions about 5 times a year in New York in a space in Chelsea on 27th Street. And then I do participate in art fairs in major cities like Milan, Paris, London, and you know, Istanbul, in order to promote the artists that I represent in an international environment so that their work is more recognized and seen by communities who are absolutely not aware of what's happening in the art world in Iran. So as a gallery, I'm not a typical gallery. I am more, my work is more like a foundation and a non-profit, but in the representation of these artists, I am able to sell their works and they get the reward and benefits from their hard work, and at the same time they get promotions and press coverages and so on and so forth. I think I've said enough for now. If there are any questions later on, I'll be happy to answer.
Hello. Okay, so I'm an artist and I'm not in a gallery anymore. So I'm very glad to hear you explaining your work, because it's fundamental for an artist to be seen and to be cared and to be understood. But I do almost everything by myself. I have a studio manager who helps me sometimes. So as an artist, yeah, as you said, it's not just champagne and vernissage. It's a lot of work. And who's an artist here? Who is an artist? One? Okay. 1.5? 2.5? 3? 4?
Florence, Silvio.
Okay, so yeah, so we have great curators as Rischa, who invited me as a curator eye of the fair across the Mediterranean, and I'm glad to be here. And thanks to curators and gallerists, of course, artists can show their work. So maybe I will show some pictures you can see in the fair, but maybe it's better. I'm an artist, so I'm not a good talker. It's better to show images, and if you have any question, I'm glad to answer. Okay? Okay, so the name is I Am 14. So that's why Rischa invited me. It's an old project, I would say. I started in 2011, 12, 13, 14. So it's a big project with a film, images and quotes, and yeah, that's a major project for me. You're just gonna see only the pictures. So it started when Facebook came in 2011. I had my little sister, Valentine, from Brussels, and I'm much older than her, so I saw her at home, and I saw another identity on Facebook. And I saw 2 different images, and I said, oh my God, something is happening now. In 2011, huh? Nowadays it's normal. And I say, how come I don't recognize her at home and on Facebook? And then I started to follow, because I have a documentary approach, I would say. I started to follow her best friends all the time, and for 2 months. And then I realized they were the new photographers, that I wasn't a photographer anymore. It didn't exist anymore. As Eric Kessel said, all the girls, 13, 14, 15, 16, they know how to handle a camera, they know the lights, they know how to behave. So I started to study the behaviors, and I restaged them. Okay, so I have many photographs. And I started to make films because my little sister wanted to commit suicide in a moment. She wanted to die. So there was a big gap between what she was showing on Facebook and what she was doing. So, of course, here it's only very colorful pictures. I use the advertisement aspects. But when you hear the films and the sound, you can hear that it's a big gap between what she shows and what she feels. It's in his bathroom. And then I said, okay, so Belgium, I'm from Belgium, colonized Congo. Do Congolese have Facebook? So I went to Congo, I searched, I am 14 years old girl, Lorraine, and I started to do the same, to follow her with her best friends and her showing herself on Facebook, because of course social media is worldwide and it affects a lot teenage people. Of course, as you remark, it's always face-to-face camera, and it's a bit, I'm looking at the camera and this is my life. This is completely fake, and this is completely true. So where is the truth? Where is the fiction? So of course, as you see, I have a documentary fiction approach. I'm in between the two borders. And of course, her dream is to go to Europe. So in the film, you can hear her voice. And then I said, okay, so I should go maybe to a conflict zone. There are many conflict zones today on Earth, but I chose Palestine. And I went to a refugee camp to meet girls, and I met Roya. And I'm still in contact with her and her family. They're doing well. So I started to inquiry, observe, and I met her best friends. And she uses Facebook in a different way. She's using Facebook just to send messages of hope. So, for example, you might think, okay, so that's completely a fiction picture. No, it's on her roof. The muezzin was singing. They were praying. Of course, I intervene as a photographer. I show myself in the pictures, telling, okay, I'm there, so of course I'm changing the reality. So as you said, Rischa, this project went in 35 different countries. Of course, he went into Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, West and East, in Ramallah, Hebron, and all the cities of Palestine and Israel. So my work focuses on Palestine side, but of course, art is just to join, as you did, Rischa, very well, to join all the borders. Okay, so it's not a focusing on a. And this was taken in 2013. So today it's 24. So the situation hasn't changed. Just because today the world is focusing on this part of the world, but it always existed for many, many, many years. So, as you said, I show in galleries, of course, because we need them to sell the work and keep the production. But I'm more into institution, so I don't know why. It happens sometimes for artists. You don't know why you're more in gallery, institution, or fairs. Fairs, it's collaborating with galleries or festivals. What it works very well, I'm telling that to artists here, are festivals. Festivals are you have curators, and they always do a very big job for artists, and then don't earn a lot of money with that. So I'm a child of festivals, I would say. So quickly, maybe I can pass the mic, and I will go on with two little other projects.
It's exactly what we live for, basically, what I call local to global. We're local, we're based in Milan, and of course our daily life is relating to Milan potential collectors, to Mia Fair, which we've attended now for 13 years. But then we have Roya doing something very similar, although a vocation for her own artists from Iran. And then we have you, ranging from incredible Palestine to Belgium to Congo. How more explicit can that be than the art is really a connecting instrument, unique. I mean, literature too, of course, but photography has this visual immediacy. A little anecdote, because we talk about borders, which should not be borders, but they are. When I started my career at MIA 13 years ago, you don't hear too well? Sorry. When I started with MIA 13 years ago, the gallery had just begun. We showed side by side in two booths. One artist was from Israel, Ohad Matalon. Next to him was an Iranian artist, Shadi Gadirian. And I'm very proud, I must say, because it was very much in our focus and what we intended to do. Ohad Matalon won the Biennale Prize 12 years ago. Then there was a big gap, inevitably. But last year with Shadi Gadirian, also very strong, very powerful, very meaningful, we won the Biennale Prize again. I'm not saying this to brag that wow, but I just find it extraordinarily meaningful that by giving these two exposures of two countries that basically have so much in common, tragically today the situation is so horrific. But I think I take pride in just saying that by connecting different languages, different worlds, different ethnic, different approaches, at the end of the day, we're talking about art, and that's what we are transferring through you, through the artist, of course, to this community. So my message is just that we have to be very coherent, consistent, and leave all the doors open. And I think, Rischa, that's exactly what you had in mind by inviting us this year.
Just to add to what my dear friend said, Pierre André, is that art has the power to play major role in the struggle of human rights and in society. The power of art is the soft power to change things, as opposed to what's happening in the world today with so much conflict everywhere. I mean, I feel really, really concerned and upset about the youth everywhere in the world that have to deal with so much conflict these days. And so much of these conflicts are because of social media available and recurrent constantly, whether it's in the news or whether, so there's no way of escaping it. So how do these people deal with this? How do we as human beings who care and we are not really connected to the government's cares, by showing the work of artists who have a different way of communicating these pains and these struggles in the society. So I think that our job as gallerists, institution, non-profits, artists, is very important nowadays, more important than anywhere. And I think that's why art has taken a political and human stand. And the messages are a lot stronger than just being, art that expresses desire or that is extremely commercial. So street photography, political photography, taking different stands, doing more research about certain region as opposed to sort of this impulsive and maybe in certain case calculated way of doing things has changed, and the world has become a different place, so the language of art has become different. I think that all of us have become political and politicized in our own way. And, when you go and see the different booths, there is always this connection of this human connection and human suffering that is like apparent everywhere.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Yes. Yes.
If you could show us something regarding her second identity, because I understand your project really stems from this collision that you realize existed between the person you knew and how she presents herself to the world. And the other question, which I don't know how to formulate, is what did you learn in your relationship with these women of different generations in time?
Every teenage girl or every human being has potentially narcissist, egocentric. So the social media gave an impact on that. So it's a big change. I mean, I lived without Facebook, without internet. I'm 44 years old. So as you maybe, we knew life without phone, social media, anything. So we were narcissists as any human being, unfortunately. But now it's a completely change. So of course, now what I learned is maybe if I can join Eric Kessel. I'm still doing photography. I will never abandon photography. But it's more the story behind the project now, which is interesting, not the photograph in itself. So it's what I've learned mainly.
But because you were staging those images, as I understand, right, the early pictures of your sister with her friends.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, after seeing her other identity, the unknown one, which was known to everyone but you, how that influenced the way you were going to represent her.
Yeah, she created a bit, it's interesting because when you want to die, I would say, or committed suicide when you're a teenager, it's a good protection having a social media account. Maybe it's good, I don't know, I'm not a psychiatrist or a therapist, but what I've learned is you have a double identity, so you can create anything, like anyone here, maybe in the room, has an avatar and showing videos, photographs all the time. And it creates something. It's an extension of oneself. So, yeah, maybe it's good for mental health. I don't know. Yes?
Very interesting.
I would like to know, you said that you are more interested in the concept behind the image now. So I would like to know a bit about the way you work. Like, how do you conceive a project?
Yeah.
And how do you realize it? And then when do you get to the final image? You know, what's the story behind it?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. So, for example, can I jump on this? Yes? Maybe you will understand. So for the ones who weren't there, so always observe as a photojournalist or documentary approach. So for example, I discovered hidden diaries written by my aunts, grandmothers, and I found them. And in my family, the women were treated as passionate, hysterical, dangerous, witches, anything. In, as you said, in the, as you mentioned, I think it's your job also, patriarchal way from iron. And I'm not against men. Of course, I'm a feminist like everyone here. But when I say patriarchal, yeah? Okay. It's just a system, patriarchy, okay? So that was my main focus. So I came back to a little town south of Belgium, and I asked all my family to be part of my new project, which is I never told anyone. So for example, this is my grandmother. And how I start is I study the place, the people, the stories behind for months, sometimes a year. And then I do little projects. For example, this series, I spent like, I cannot say, 1.5 years, and it's only 7 images. So my research is always very deep because I study also the folklore of my little town where the men demonstrates, and yeah, I just show you the pictures. So for example, in my tribe, we go into trance every year on Mardi Gras. It's a carnival. We have the same in Italy, I think, in little towns. And in Belgium, we have one town where the carnival is very famous. It's studied by anthropologists, ethnologists, and all the men in my family, uncles, grandfathers, they have the feathers and they change their personality in 1 week and they become others. We cannot touch the mask as women, we cannot wear the mask. So what I did, for example, I changed the feathers hat of men and I changed it into a ass hat. Because in my family, women were pushed to speak with their ass and not their head, making kids, not studying, and have a good husband. So that's the way I'm working, okay? It has different layers. That's my cousin, for example. I ask a master in bondage to hang up my cousin, and it explained personal story, but more about the bankrupt of all the textile fabrics in Northern Europe collapsed, and the poverty now we found south of Belgium. And this is all the men from my family. So I disguise them, and I put my cousin naked in front of them to accelerate humiliation and how the women were treated in my family. And you can see that in the folklore and in the personal stories. So for example, this, as you said, if we come back to the discussion of gallery, of course I exhibit in galleries, but I don't have, as you said, one gallery, because a gallery is what they do. They push the artist, they give the vision, they tell, okay, this no, focus on that. They sell the work, okay? So for example, I didn't have any gallery. I won the first prize in Tokyo, in Japan, and it opened the door to other works, other festivals, and after gallery comes. But of course, if you're an artist here, you have to do things by yourself. Never, never, never wait for someone helping you.
Rischa?
Grazie a tutti per essere intervenuti. Thank you, Roya. Thank you. Bénédicte. Grazie Pierre. Credo che sia un momento molto importante perché abbiamo visto un modo diverso di fare, diciamo così, il gallerista, no? Il gallerista in senso stretto è un po' quello che volevamo raccontare, progetti ambiziosi, artisti che non hanno una galleria ma che stanno facendo un'importante ricerca. Quindi vi ringrazio di essere stati tutti qui con noi e vi aspettiamo nella nostra sezione. Grazie.
Thank you. It's very, yeah.